Hi, I'm John. I founded Gentle Response in 2016. It's a very unique, very dynamic, realistic-based training program designed specifically to give people an opportunity to develop stress inoculation, muscle memory, self-confidence, and confidence in other teammates and co-workers. The biggest difference between me and other organizations and companies that teach conflict de-escalation is that I am not just another lecture presentation with some slideshows. And my scenarios, which are very dynamic and very realistic, are not done as a class exercise or done in small skits with some class members called up to the front of the class to perform a skit in front of the class. In my experience, things like that, especially the class exercises, just normally break down into just nervous laughter and giggles and performance anxiety from it. People called up to the front of the class to do a skit. What happens with my training program is after the lecture presentation portion, the class is broken down and everyone goes off in teams of 2 or 3 to a separate room where they're going to execute a scenario based on actual incidences that organization as a company has either experienced or may potentially experience. And after a 3-minute scenario, all the students go through a 4 to 5 minute critique phase with that instructor role player. Now, my instructor role players are mainly former and current police officers, and they go through a critique phase where they now can share with the students what they did right. We always want to validate and encourage the things that were done right, but now you have an opportunity to get instructor role players that will point out what can be tweaked and done differently. Because again, one of the things I've noticed is that in life really, that there is a vast majority of people who don't realize that they say and do things under stress that could actually escalate a situation. They may not realize that they may have a tendency to smirk or roll their eyes or unconsciously or fold their arms. Now, folding your arms and standing there where you're talking to your friends, acquaintances, and things like that with your arms folded is actually very normally a very comfortable posture to take. However, depending on the situation you're in, you may come across unfriendly and uninterested and so on, and that could just escalate a situation. And again, this type of feedback, real-time feedback from instructor role players is not something you would get at all from just a lecture presentation or just watching training videos. There are companies out there, very good companies that put out a lot of good information, and they brag about having decades of teaching experience. My team and I have decades, as a matter of fact, up to 100 years of actual experience in dealing with some very volatile situations, oftentimes, sometimes with people who are actually trying to hurt us. I designed my training program based on my experience in the military and as a police officer. I spent 7 years as an infantryman in the Army, went through Desert Storm, and then 20 years as a police officer. And I do not believe, based on my own experience, that anyone can become very proficient or efficient at anything without actually having a hands-on practical experience and going through it. So, for example, a bowling ball. You can go through days of lecture presentation about how to roll a ball down a perfectly level lane towards a bunch of pins already stacked up for you. But until you actually pick up a ball and try to do that, you suddenly realize there's a lot more to bowling than just roll the ball down the lane. Or how about driving a stick shift car? It's all until you get into that car and try to figure out for yourself the coordination required and the timing required for the clutch, the brake, the gear shift, and all that. It's just theory. And the same thing it is with interpersonal stress and conflict and interacting that way and trying to handle a situation with someone who's stressed and all that. And again, because so many people don't realize that they have a tendency to say and do things that could actually escalate a situation, you are more apt to either underreact, overreact, or even have a vapor lock and do nothing at all when you suddenly find yourself in a confrontational situation with somebody. And so you and your staff can just sit through another lecture presentation or watch a bunch of training videos and check off the box and tell yourself that you're prepared and trained, or you can actually have my team and I come and put you through a 4-hour block of instruction and actually do some real training.